Shabbat Shalom. Welcome everyone. Everyone here. I always said this, I think I said it last Friday. We get double points for coming to services after the marathons of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and we're still here a day later. So we'll have lots of singing. Rabbi Mike is at the piano, and I'll be singing, and I can use all the help. So let's start our service on page 25, in the very center of the page, Hine Ma Tov. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב, הנה מה טוב, יאללה לי, יאללה לה 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 לי. הנה מה טוב, הנה מה טוב, יאללה לי, יאללה לה 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 לי. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. We now light our Shabbat candles together. Let us please rise, and we turn to page 26 and read from the bottom section of page 26. And at home, you're welcome to rise and join us as well. The Shabbat candles are a powerful symbol in our tradition. A light is a symbol of God's presence in the world, boundless and life-giving. A light represents the truths and values that guide us through life. A light symbolizes the most elevated and precious that is within each person. The human spirit is the light of God. A light reminds us of the aspirations of the community of Israel and the role we are called to play. For nations shall walk by your light. So let us join. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kideshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. And let us be seated, so we continue singing Lecha Dodi as we welcome Shabbat as a bride and a queen. And Rabbi Mike was mentioning that there are hundreds of melodies for Lecha Dodi, but very few melodies where the composer is actually playing the piano and joining us on Shabbat, Rabbi Mike. So let's enjoy Lecha Dodi. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. שמור וזכור בדיבור אחד, השמיענו אל המיוחד. אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, לשם ולתפארת ולתהילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה, כי מקור הברכה, מראש מקדם נסוכה. סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. התעוררי, התעוררי, כי באורך קומי אורי, 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 שיר דברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה. לה לה לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. בואי בשלום עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצלה, תוך אמוני ים סגולה. בואי חלה, בואי חלה, לה לה לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. Let us be seated. Thank you, Mike. Staying with the theme of music and music for prayer and singing, let's read on page 30. As Shabbat begins, each one of us now sings a song. There is one who sings the song of her own life, of her own needs and personal aspirations. There is another who sings the song of his people, leaving the inner circle of himself and connecting to the community of Israel. With his song, he shares the history, the experiences, and the hopes of the Jewish people. There is another who reaches further to sing the song of humanity. Seeing our shared essence above the differences, her song embraces all people, aspiring toward our common goal of celebrating life in peace. And then there is one who rises toward even wider horizons, linking himself with all existence, with all God's creatures, with all of life, and he sings about them and with them. And then we all join our voices, the song of myself, the song of my people, the song of humanity, the song of the world, all merge in our singing now. And so this becomes the song of holiness. Our name, Israel, may stand for Shir El, the song of God. And this is the song we now sing. And we turn the page to sing Kaddish. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא דברך חירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה בעגלה ובזמן קריב, ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך לעולם ולעלמי עלמיה. יתברך, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי דקודשה בריחו לאלה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה דמירם בעלמא, ואמרו אמן. We now continue joining for Baruch. So let us please rise as we open the Aron HaKodesh. We're on page 33. La 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. ברכו את אדוני, המבורך, ברוך אדוני, המבורך, המבורך, לעולם ועד, המבורך, המבורך, לעולם ועד. And let's turn the page, on page 34. Praise are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign through time and space, who summons the coming of the evenings, opening gateways with wisdom, varying and alternating the seasons with reason, and sets the stars in order as they move through the skies, creating day and night, rolling light away for darkness and darkness away for light, making day pass and bringing on the night, establishing distinction between day and night. Source of all forces is God's name, a vital and abiding power, constantly ruling over us forever. Praise are you, Adonai, the boundless one, bringing on the evenings. And before Shema, on page 35, let us join singing Ahavat Olam. Ahavat Olam, Beit Israel, Amcha Torah u'mitzvot, chukim u'mishpatim, otanu limadetam. Al ken Adonai Eloheinu, b'shochveinu u'kumeinu, nasiach b'chukecha, ונשמח בדברי תורתך ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד. כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו, ובהם נגע יומם ולילה. At the bottom of the page, the ancient words we're about to recite speak of a mutual love between us and God. This love we perceive in the gifts of nature, life, and wisdom, and this love we manifest, caring for all the living and pursuing Torah and all knowledge. Saying Shema Israel, we renew our vows with God and Torah, and with our past and future generations. ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים, ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל. שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד. ברוך שם כבוד מלכותו לעולם ועד. Let us be seated to continue Shema Ve'ahavta, page 36. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. On page 38, last section of Shema, we look at the tzitzit, remember all our responsibilities as Jews. למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. A song from Torah, the bottom of page 39, Mi Chamocha. Let us join. La 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 מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה. מלכותך ראו בניך, בוקע ים לפני משה. זה אלי ענו ואמרו, זה אלי ענו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה. Good clapping. So we'll sing now a little less joyful and more reflective, but also with the hope, Hashkiveinu, for going to bed tonight and waking up to somehow a better morning and better world. This is on page 41, bottom of page 41. Hashkiveinu Adonai, Eloheinu leshalom, ve'hamidenu malkeinu lechaim. Spread the shelter of your peace over us. Guide us in wisdom, compassion, and trust. Hashkiveinu Adonai, Eloheinu leshalom, ve'hamidenu malkeinu lechaim. Save us for the sake of your name. Shield us from hatred, sorrow, and pain. Hashkiveinu Adonai, Eloheinu leshalom, ve'hamidenu malkeinu lechaim, lechaim, lechaim. We reach the Amidah, beginning on page 44. For the Amidah, we all rise, we face the Aron HaKodesh, and at home, suns go down, but try to remember where is the sun comes up in the morning. That's the east, and you may want to turn that way. Page 44. Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Eternal God, open my lips that my mouth may declare your glory. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avoteinu ve'imoteinu Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Leah, ve'Elohei Rachel, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor ve'Hanora, El Elyon, גומל חסדים טובים וקונה הכל וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם למען שמו ואהבה מלך חוזר ומושיע ומגן ברוך אתה אדוני מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיה הכל אתה רב להושיע, מכלכל לחיים בחסד, מחיה הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיה הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש. Let us be seated, please. On page 45, towards the bottom of the page. What is holiness? Reverence for God is the beginning of wisdom. Awareness of the holy is real understanding. Our sense of wonder, the emotion enabling us to feel marvel, awe, and mystery, is at the heart of artistic creativity and of scientific discovery. Wonder is also the basis of a religious approach to life. When appreciation of the cosmic harmony and of the beauty in nature combines with our capacity for empathy and love, then reverence for life emerges and the notion of holiness appears. When we become aware of being just a tiny part of the one web of energy and life, our sense of awe grows, leading us to a personal sense of purpose and duty, to respect and care for the whole, for creation, for life. When we express these insights in our daily acts and choices, holiness enters our lives. And we'll sing for the holiness of this day on page 46, in the middle of the page, Retzeh. Eloheinu be'amcha Yisrael utefilata be'ahava tekabel utehi leratzon tamid utehi leratzon tamid avodat Yisrael amecha Baruch atah Adonai, המחזי שכינתו לציון, המחזי שכינתו לציון. And at the bottom of page 47, I have a reflection for Shabbat. Source of all goodness, as I join in Shabbat celebration, I seek your blessings. Grant me health enough to perform my daily tasks, wealth enough to answer my needs, and compassion enough to feel the needs of others. Give me strength enough to confront my faults, wisdom enough to understand your deeper laws, and loyalty enough to fulfill my duties. Give me courage enough to be true to the best within me, and empathy enough to see the best in others. Give me patience enough to continue the journey, hope enough to overcome my worries, and gladness enough on this Shabbat day. A song for Shalom is how we conclude the Amidah, and let's turn to page 49 for Shalom Rav. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha tasim leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha tasim leolam. Ki ata hu melech adon lechol hashalom. Ki ata hu melech adon lechol hashalom. Shalom rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. Shalom rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. V'tov beinecha levarech et amcha Yisrael bechol et ubechol sha'ah bishlomecha. Shalom rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. Shalom rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. Tasim leolam. Tasim leolam. And we pause now for a few moments of our own thoughts and reflection on this Shabbat. And as you know, we'll enjoy some beautiful music, and also we'll invite you, those at home on the screen, you have some reflections and kavanot for Shabbat. We have them here beginning on page 50 in our prayer book. mic. I'm sure you recognize that's a Shabbat prayer. That's beautiful. And we have another Shabbat prayer. We can join singing Oseh Shalom at the bottom of page 53. Oseh Shalom imromam, hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen. We will continue singing Mishe Berach. This is our prayer for healing, for recovery. At home on the screen you can see many names which we all can see here, hopefully on our service sheet. These are friends, neighbors, family members, all those who are going hopefully through healing and recovery. So bringing all this to mind, we join now for Mishe Berach, page 54. Mishe Berach Avotenu Mekor HaBracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mishe Berach Imotenu Mekor HaBracha Lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen. And we'll continue now taking Torah from the Aron HaKodesh for the reading of Torah, and we turn forward in our Siddur to page 63. As we take the Torah, I'll invite you all please to rise and join us. We'll be singing Ki Mitzion at the bottom of page 63. Ki mitzion tetze Torah, Ki mitzion tetze Torah, udevar Adonai mirushalayim, Baruch shenatan Torah Torah, Baruch shenatan Torah Torah, le'amo Yisrael bigdushato. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. echad Eloheinu, gadol Adoneinu, kadosh shemo. על שלושה דברים, על שלושה דברים, על שלושה דברים העולם עומד. על שלושה דברים, שלושה דברים, על שלושה דברים העולם עומד. על התורה ועל העבודה ועל גמילות חסדים. על התורה ועל העבודה ועל גמילות חסדים. Let us all be seated. Prepare the Torah. For those of you who may be wondering, and if you're not wondering, maybe now you'll wonder, how come we're reading from our purple Torah this evening when we have our red Torah and we have our white Torah that we always read. And there's a simple answer and there's the real answer. The simple is that they're all the same, right? It's one Torah, just the cover that is different. So never judge a Torah by its cover. But the real answer is that this is old technology. So if you happen to read on this Shabbat to the very end of Torah, we're almost on the one to last Torah portions, you're on this very end of the scroll. And on Shabbat next week, and it's Sukkot, so we read from about the middle of the scroll. And then Simchat Torah coming up a few days later, we read from the very beginning of the scroll. That's lots of scrolling. So we have a Torah scroll set, each one for a different part of the reading. So we are blessed with having several scrolls of Torah. And we have colors to choose from, and they're all wonderful. And purple, it's a color of royalty back in the ancient world and in the world of Torah. I'm sure that inspired those who created this cover. The reading of Torah for today is a song, actually. It's the last song that appears in Torah. And you remember, Mi Chamocha, we just sang the song by the sea. So if you look this from Moses' perspective, well, he must have been a younger person. I don't know how young, but I know they were in the desert for 40 years. And he's singing a song now. That other song was 40 years earlier. And now Moses is saying goodbye basically to everybody in Israel. And he says goodbye with the song, with the poem. And we'll read a few verses from this poem. I don't know what to make of this Torah portion, so I'll let you figure out for yourselves. Hopefully you can read a little bit of what it says. But the song is not particularly optimistic song, like Mi Chamocha. It's a song where basically Moses said, old times maybe were better. And the current generation, you're not doing things right. And you better go back to wonder how things used to be and go back to that. So this is the poem. It's called Ha'azinu. And why don't we all join together for the Torah blessings? So we all have the Aliyah, the blessings on page 65. Baruchu et Adonai Hamvorach. Baruch Adonai Hamvorach leolam va'ed. Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim. Venatan lanu et Torato. Baruch ata Adonai noten haTorah. האזינו השמיים ואדברה, ותשמע הארץ אמרי פי. יערוף כמטר לקחי, תזל כטל אמרתי. כי סירים עלי דשא וחרביבים עלי עשב. כי שם אדוני אקרא, הבו גודל אלוהינו. הצור תמים פעולו. כי כל דרכיו משפט, אל אמונה ואין עוול, צדיק וישר הוא, שיחד לו, לא בניו מומם, דור עיקש ופתלתול. על אדוני תגמלו זאת, עם נבל ולא חכם, הלא הוא אביך קונך, הוא עשך ויחוננך. זכור ימות עולם, בינו שנות דור ודור, שעל אביך ויגדך, זקניך ויאמרו לך. And we can join for the next blessing of Torah. Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu torat emet, v'chaye olam nata betochenu. Baruch ata Adonai noten haTorah. Thank you, Ed. So before we return the Torah to the Aron HaKodesh, I was thinking today of how if you were in the ancient Israel and you had a message and you wanted people to see it and to hear it, well, you will write it. And if you were there, you wouldn't use a book, you use a scroll with the ink and the parchment. This is how you spread the message. And today, actually last week, I was in Israel spreading a message, but I did it from right here because I participated in a podcast from Israel about beliefs and ideas. And that's a different technology of how you can transmit a message. And I wanted to share with you about that because it was a conversation mostly about, so what is Reform Judaism? What do Reform Jews in America do? Because many people in Israel, there is a small Reform movement and it's growing, but most people really don't know. And I was asked several questions, but the number one question that I was asked is, so what does Reform mean? Reform means that you change everything, that you do everything differently, right? That's Reform. And I tried to explain that actually, for me, the fact that I'm Reform means that I go to special lengths and efforts to actually preserve the tradition. And that's why I'm Reform. And a perfect example of what I mean is Sukkot, coming up in a few days. So what do we know about Sukkot? In this Torah, we are told, when is the end of the year and you harvest all your fields and your plantations and everything, make sure that you bring your harvest and you offer thanks to God and you make the sukkah, which is where you go and spend a few days harvesting. We know that festival, right? And the Torah also says, for this celebration, it should be for you, but you should share with the widow and the orphan and the poor and the foreigner who lives with you. That's Sukkot. So I read Torah, so now I need to go back to my farm and check my fields. But I have a problem. I don't have a farm, and I don't have fields. And I have some old tomatoes. I think the vines are gone by now, right? So I don't have all of these things that I should be doing on Sukkot. I cannot do it. But the important thing is, it's not because I don't want it. It's not because I don't care or I want to change everything. Reality was changed for me. Back then, people of Israel, they were all farmers. Make perfect sense for them to have a celebration of farmers. But now, raise your hand if you're a farmer. Anybody at home, I can see you. We're not farmers. Reality has changed, not only for us, for every Jew. How many Jews in Tel Aviv can go now because it's Sukkot to their fields and bring offerings? We don't have that anymore. So, since reality has changed, what are our options? And I see one simple option. One is to say, oh well, I don't have a field, I don't have anything, so well, Sukkot is a beautiful, nice thing that we used to do once, but you know, I'm not gonna do it anymore because I can't. Things change. The other option is, I think, what Reform Jews do, which is that we say, wait a minute. We have another option. Sukkot has some details of practice, and it has an essence and a message. The detail is that you harvest and you bring and you put it in a basket and you decorate a sukkah. But what's the essence of Sukkot? Why are we doing this? What's the whole point? And it seems to me that the point is very simple. From Torah, what we get is, at some point, we have to be grateful for our harvest. And Sukkot is not to be grateful for great harvest. It's to be grateful for whatever it is that we harvested. Can be little, can be maybe much. Whatever it is, it's our opportunity to be grateful for our efforts. And that's something we can still do, regardless whether we're farmers or not. And it's also an opportunity to celebrate, and celebrate with community. And remember what Torah says. Not just you and that widow and the orphan and the foreigner and all those who maybe don't enjoy the opportunities and abundance that you do. They also are part. So Sukkot is a holiday of empathy, of connecting and caring for other people around us. That's something we learn from the sukkah itself. For those who make a sukkah, and if you ever try to sleep in the sukkah, particularly when you live here in North Carolina, I don't remember a year in which it didn't rain during Sukkot. And you know what happens when it rains in Sukkot? You get wet. Unless, of course, you make a better sukkah and you make a wonderful roof that water doesn't go through. But guess what? That's not a sukkah. The number one rule that we have, and this is rabbis from all, not Reform rabbis, that determine what makes a sukkah, is precisely that is precarious. That is not a great roof. Good enough, maybe, for a sunny day, but not great. And you need to see the stars, which means water will come through, and if it's windy, it gets cold. So the whole symbol of Sukkah seems to also point to an essence, I think, of this holiday, which is to be grateful for the roof and not take that for granted. Because just like when we fast in Yom Kippur and we feel a little bit of hunger, maybe it helps us understand the people who don't choose to fast and still don't have enough food. And we have some empathy, and hopefully we'll do something. I think the sukkah does that for us. We live in a precarious temporary dwelling, and of course we do it happily because we know, hey, if it rains, we go back home, to our real home. And we do it for a few days, and then we go back to our home with our AC and the heating and all the conveniences. But what about people who don't have that luxury? How about people who live in precarious dwelling? How about people who maybe have an apartment and a home, but the rent is due at the end of the month and they don't have a job and they cannot pay it? How about people who have a beautiful home where maybe they live for a couple decades in Raleigh, but the whole world is moving to North Carolina and to the Triangle, and now prices go so high that people need to leave their neighborhoods, can't afford to live there anymore? How about them and their housing? So this is, I think, what we do as Reformed Jews in Sukkot. What we're doing is preserve that essence of the empathy, of the gratitude, and of caring for not only what we have, but caring that that widow and orphan and poor and foreigner, that they also don't live in a precarious home situation. And I was saying how reality changed from back then. One thing did not change is that there's still many people who are not securely having a home. And that's a reality right here as well, here in Carolina. And actually, sadly, it's a growing reality here in the Triangle. Our wonderful harvesting for the high tech is also causing lots of people to not be able to live here anymore, not be able to afford a simple house. So what do we do about it? There's another Reformed congregation here in our town. You know, we're the Reformed congregation in Cary, and there's Bethor in Raleigh. And interestingly enough, these two Reformed congregations, we are joining this Sukkot to try to make that connection to all of us. So next Wednesday, it is Wednesday 22nd, we're going to have a Zoom event, but it's a joint Sukkot event, and it's going to be within the umbrella of One Wake, which is our coalition of churches and communities, 50 different organizations. But this time is an event for us Jews. And I think the event has a title like, "Our Neighbors Cannot Afford Their Homes Anymore." And it's going to be a discussion about not only the reality of what's happening, but and what can we do? And what are we going to do as Jews? And interestingly enough, I'll share with you one of the initiatives that we're discussing. And is very similar to Sukkot, right? We get all our harvest, and we enjoy it, we work hard for it, but we also share some of it with those who need it. Right? Like we leave the corners of our fields. Well, we don't have the corners of our fields, but we can do this. We are going to ask the town of Cary. Yes, there are people who are very home insecure in the town of Cary. And we're going to ask the town of Cary to appropriate 1 penny for each dollar of tax revenue for affordable housing, to help people pay the rent, to abate the property taxes that are going through the roofs, to do all kinds of programs that exist, but they're really not funded. 1 penny out of every dollar. Sounds like we can do. We have a big harvest. We can devote 1/100th of it for people to have homes. So we'll discuss these initiatives and these efforts, and this, I think, will be a wonderful way of celebrating Sukkot as well. We can celebrate building a sukkah, and by the way, for those who want something fun to do, Sunday morning, 9 a.m., come here to our backyard, and Steve and a few other people will appreciate the help building the sukkah, so we have that sukkah. And following Shabbat, we're going to have a sukkah party before our Shabbat service with pizza, and you bring your own drinks. So we'll celebrate, and we'll have the 4 species, all the traditions. But we're not forgetting the essence. And the essence is, and what do we do for that widow and the orphan and the foreigner and those who need something on this Sukkot? How do we share that? How we express our empathy? So we're going to have that too. You need to register for that, and I'm sure you got the info on the weekly news. And if you don't remember seeing them, go back to that weekly news from last Wednesday, and you have some info there. 1 click to register. I think it will be an eye-opening event if you have not been seeing much of this. And it's also eye-opening to see how it's not that hard to make a difference. And we can make a difference if we really want to and get together to do that. So, Chag Sameach, happy Sukkot. We already have a good Rosh Hashanah, a good Yom Kippur, Chatima Tova. We have one more in this marathon of holidays this month. We have one more Sukkot, and then we have Simchat Torah, so we have 2 more coming. Let's make the most of these holidays. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Let's return Torah to the Aron HaKodesh, and we return back in our Siddur, in our prayer book, to page 67 for Etz Chaim. Torah is a tree of life. Let us please rise. Etz Chaim למחזיקים בם ותומכיה מאושר דרכיה דרכי נועם וכל נתיבותיה שלום השיבנו אדוני אליך ונשובה חדש ימינו חדש ימינו Let us remain standing to join for Aleinu. Turn the page, 68. Aleinu לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו On page 71, we'll recite Kaddish, remembering our loved ones who have died. We'll remember their lives, the blessings, the many beautiful fruits they brought to our lives. On this Shabbat, on their yahrzeit, we'll remember Frida Green, David Gershauer, Louis Vonkin, Richard Lerner, Gertrude Rabinowitz, Brian Selsky, Harry Stone, Rose Rodney, Bernard Knippel, Isador Sabarsky, David Hillerson, Susie Shumsky, Bruce Klein, and Edith Rawak, who died in the Shoah. Let us join. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא דברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחי יכון וביום יכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך לעלם ולעלמי עלמיה, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשא בריחו. לאלה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דאמירם בעלמא ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה, וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו amen. Let's be seated, please. We have one final song, but a couple of announcements to share with everyone. quick review. Sukkah building is going to happen on Sunday at 9 a.m. The Sukkah pizza party is going to be next week on Friday, and if you can, we'll appreciate if you RSVP, if you intend to come, so we have a better count for pizzas to order. It's going to be 6:15, hopefully a nice day, good weather, and we'll be outside, outdoors, so it's going to be more comfortable and safe in terms of our pandemic. And then, of course, we'll have our Shabbat service 7:30, as always here. If you know anybody who is, let's say, after college and maybe before all the children, somewhere there, young adults, we can't put an exact number of years. We have a get-together in the Sukkah on Sunday at 7 p.m. And it's again, bring your chair, bring your drink, bring your snack. And if you know anybody in that age, let them know. And it will be nice to see you. 7 p.m. on Sunday evening. A quick update on the refugee apartment that we are organizing to set up. We put out, right after Rosh Hashanah, a couple of sign-up genius for different things to provide, and there's been dozens of responses, which is beautiful to see. And we still need a couple items there and some hands to volunteer for the day when we actually need to do the moving. So please take a look at those sign-up geniuses that we send and see if there's anything that you can contribute there. Adult Hebrew. It's the fourth generation, the fourth class of Adult Hebrew. We have some graduates and future students also right here. It starts on Sunday morning, taught by our beloved Rabbi Mike. And it's a wonderful thing to do, and you can do it at all age. And if you know nothing of Hebrew, this is the course for you. And if you know something, this is also the course for you. So give it a try. And finally, that program I was mentioning is on Zoom on Wednesday evening, 7:30. We do need to register to get that link, so I'll invite you to do that as well. I want to say thank you again, Rabbi Mike, for the music, and Sharon and Mike that are taking care of all the Zoom and the sound. And Shabbat Shalom to everyone. I see you, some of you who are at home, and I want to say a special Shabbat Shalom for everyone who is joining us from Arizona, from Phoenix, especially Shabbat Shalom. And we have one final song. It's Adon Olam on page 79. Adon Olam asher malach beterem kol yetzir nivra let nasa bechefzo kol azai melech shemo nikra ve'acharei kichlot hakol levado imloch nora ve'hu haya ve'hu והוא יהיה בתפארה והוא אחד ואין שני להמשיל לו להכבירה בלי ראשית בלי תכלית ולא העוז והמשרה והוא אלי וחי גואלי וצור חבלי בצרה והוא ניסי ומנוס לי מנת כוסי ביום אקרא בידו הפקיד רוחי ותשם בעירה ועם רוחי גבייתי Adonai li velo iram. Let us rise, please, for Kiddush and Amotzi. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam boreh peri hagafen. L'chaim. And with ההתחלה, ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, המוציא לחם מן הארץ. אמן. שבת שלום.